Jafar. Is he evil? Yes. Is he psychotic? Yes. Does he have a toe-tapping iconic song? Well, it's more of a reprise, but man, does he sell it. Jafar is the definition of a power-hungry villain. I mean, he starts out as a magician and still wants more power. Who could have given voice to such a cool, calm, and collected, insane, chaotic, and psychotic villain? Let's find out. Before we start, don't forget to check out our Discord, our coffee page, and like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, all the things. It really helps us out. Jonathan Freeman was born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1950. Cleveland, Ohio? The home of Drew Carey? Ohio! As he puts it, he was lucky enough to grow up in a rich and supportive environment when it came to the arts. His thespian journey began at 8 years old when his parents took him to the Heights Theater to watch a children's production.
So I went to see the show with my folks and I was mesmerized. And I can tell you it was a play based on the story The Wise Fools of Gotham. And I was fascinated and I said, I would like to do that. And the next day I was enrolled. So they must have been thrilled to know that there was something I was interested in doing. And I worked in children's theater and I worked in some adult theater doing kid roles. And there were first national tours of Broadway shows that came through Cleveland to the Hannen Theater at the time. And the first time I saw a big fancy Broadway show was Flower Drum Song. I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to be up there with all those beautiful people doing all that magical stuff. Couldn't wait to get out of school every day to get to rehearsals. I couldn't, wait to get on to the next thing and the next show and the next season. And so I ended up just continuing. And then at a certain point, one of my teachers, I took classes, one of my children's theater class of teachers, whose name was Marilyn Bianchi. And we got her right at a time we're about maybe 13 years old, 14, and suddenly it wasn't children's theater anymore,
Right.
And she basically said to us, this doesn't just have to be for fun. You can do this as a profession if you want to continue sometime. So for those of you that want to be serious about it, let's get serious. And she basically led us out of the dark recesses of puberty, I think, and into having careers.
Jonathan eventually graduated from the Ohio University and then packed his bags for New York with plans to make it onto Broadway. Psh, like he'd ever make it. Well, it turns out he made it pretty quickly. In 1974, he appeared in a Broadway performance of Sherlock Holmes. And in 1978, he performed in Platinum, also on Broadway. He also appeared in off-Broadway productions including How to Succeed at Business Without Even Trying in 1977 and Desert Song in 1980. What is it with Disney villain voice actors in this play? But let's go back a bit because Jonathan didn't only have a passion for stage acting. He also had a passion for the dark, twisted arts of puppetry.
I always liked puppets. When I was a kid, I liked puppets. I remember having puppets all the time and putting on puppet shows. And in fact, at one point, my father very kindly built me this really nice puppet stage. And my friend Karen and I used to do very elaborate shows and probably charge a nickel at the time. So I remember learning how to make puppets and build puppets a little bit when I was a kid, and I always liked it. Then I became an actor. And I was still always interested in puppets. And when I moved to New York, one of the first jobs that I got was working for the New York Marionette Theater in Central Park. And then from there, I met someone who was working at the Bill Baird Marionette Theater, and I joined that company, which was a wonderful, they had a fantastic theater on Barrow Street. And a resident company of puppeteers, and that was really interesting. So it just went on from there. I don't know, and I got involved with Olga, and then Olga married Craig, and Craig and Olga started this company called Flexitune, and I was involved with them for a long time.
Did those names sound familiar? No? Me neither, till I looked it up. Flexitoon is a puppet production company behind many well-known projects, including Pinwheel for Nickelodeon and Shining Time Station starring Ringo Starr and replaced by George Carlin. Yeah, you heard me right.
And I saw for Tito Swing, who lived in the jukebox, and that was the show that originally starred Ringo Starr, and then George Carlin took over. It was a gas. We had such a good time. It was like that was about 6 seasons, I think, something like that. The reason that I really like doing that particular show so much is that it's just so completely crazy that inside this, the people go into a train station, they put a nickel into a jukebox, and then they cut to the inside of the jukebox, and you see that nickel coming down, in scale, supposedly.
Yeah.
And then, and Tito, I think the deal was, it's something like, if it was something that he knew, then that they knew they would play it, and if it was something they didn't know, they just play whatever they wanted, something like that. It was completely nuts. As a puppeteer, you not only are, animating the character and doing the voice, but there's also work like every day, because we built the puppets too. So all of the puppets that, like, let's say we're doing a segment, I think there was some like Jamaican holiday song or something. So we have to quick go and like make Jamaican costumes and hats and props and palm trees and, whatever.
Yeah.
For that particular segment. And some of it we do ahead of time, but some of it is done like on site.
I remember like Craig sometimes saying, Jonathan, we need a plate of spaghetti. And that would mean, plate of spaghetti this big, but so it look in the, the right scale.
Right.
And so we had a huge table in the studio. We shot mostly in Toronto. We had a huge studio with a huge table with everything you could imagine on it. So I would go get, some white yarn and put it in a pile and find some styrofoam balls and dip them in red and brown paint and put it on top of and put some glue on it so it'd stick together. And then I put some more paint so the sauce would be, and then I put a hair dryer on it because I needed it immediately, of course.
Right.
Hold on. Before we move on, can we hear the song?
To a shining time station where dreams can come true, waiting there for you.
So chill. Jonathan worked on Shining Time for its entire 7-year run from 1989 to 1995. But as most actors and distracted drivers do, Jonathan was multitasking. While working for the show, he also worked around the stages of New York, where he would stumble into one of his most infamous and villainous of roles.
I had auditioned for Howard Ashman and Alan Menken for the original production of Little Shop of Horrors. And I didn't get it. But I had a great audition. I auditioned to play the dentist at the time. I had a great audition. It was one of the few auditions I remember walking out of and thinking to myself, wow, that was good. I really liked them. They were such gentlemen, the two of them.
So I was happened to be doing a new and a difficult musical at one point in my career that was called In a Pig's Valise, starring Nathan Lane. Reggie Cafe was in it, Michael McCormick, a lot of wonderful people, Ada Maris. That show was cast by a guy named Albert Tavares, a wonderful, wonderful casting director, and unfortunately no longer with us. And so the show was trouble. It was big trouble, and I even remember actually begging once to be fired from it. Oh, by the way, that was the first show that I ever played a villain in, thanks to Graziella Daniele, who directed and choreographed it. 3 years later, I get this call from my agent, Diana, saying, I have an audition for you for the third film. It's called Aladdin, and it's for the role of the villain. What could be better? So, and it was being cast by who? Albert Tavares. So the first audition, I went into a room that was probably the size of your closet, because I know you got a lot of clothes and shoes and stuff. I went into this closet of a rehearsal room, and it was me, Albert Tavares, my accompanist, and a reel-to-reel tape recorder. That's how they used to do it in the olden times. So I did my audition. I sang a song. I read the text that they had sent me with the help of a preliminary drawing, which was not the drawing of the Jafar that we know, but it gave me some good ideas. And that was it. 6 months went by. I got a call back. I went to the callback, and this time it was a very grand rehearsal room. It was draped, for sound. There was a platform at one end of the room, the piano, and there's a microphone, and they ushered me up onto the platform, and then all the suits were at one. There were 12 people at the end of the room. They all had suit, and I stepped up, and they said, "Now just do the same audition you did last time." I was like, "Oh, if only I could remember what I did." So I get up on the platform to do my audition, and I see 12 people go like this.
Oh, no.
And I thought, oh, God, something's gone terribly wrong. And then while I was doing my audition, all of a sudden I processed it and was like, oh, they're just this is a voice.
They're
not
listening.
Yeah, because I walked in big fat me and the character's really skinny. No, really. So they're like, they covered because they just wanted to hear the voice. I had a great relationship with my principal animator. Every character has a principal character, has principal animators, and there's many other animators that will also work on the same character. But my principal animator, was a man named Andreas Deja, who is a terrific animator. You know his work. He's done a lot of other characters. So I got to be very friendly with him, and it was just a great relationship and a great experience for me, because I was in fact interested in all those things. When you're working in animation, or at that time, like the directors, we had two wonderful directors, John Musker and Ron Clemens, and one of them would generally be in the booth and one would be on the floor with you, and they you physicalize everything that you do, because they capture it on tape so that the animators can use it. This best example is the first time you see Jafar. He's riding across the desert in a charger, and he gets there to meet that little thief. I think his name was Gazim or something. He says, and his first line Jafar says is, "You're late," like that. And so I did an inhalation, and my nostril flared or something like that. And when I saw the first line drawing of Jafar saying that line, that's what happened. You saw Jafar do an inhalation, my nostril flared, his mouth dropped, and he said, "You're late." So anyway, I guess my point about it is that you just have to sort of keep working at it and using the text to give you all the keys that you want. And then after you've finally found these things, the directors will come in and they'll say, okay, now we need a 10-second laugh. Now we need a 20-second laugh. Okay, we need this laugh. So if you look at Jafar's arc starts when he's very smooth at the beginning of the film, and then by the end of the film, he is having basically a psychotic break, is what happens to him. And so that's really what happened. It just developed over that year and 9-month period when they would say, okay, can you take it further? Can you take it further? Can you take it further? And so I just started, and then I went for it, and it went something like this.
Calm yourself, Iago. Soon I will be Sultan. It's time to say goodbye, Prince Abubu. Trust me, my pungent friend. You'll get what's coming to you.
Whoever has the gold makes the rules.
Well, he's in disguise. You can see he's pretty decrepit. They gave me a crutch.
Oh.
They gave me like a rag to throw around my head or something like that, so I could actually physicalize it. That I didn't know I didn't know I'd have teeth like that. But I figured he'd be really disgusting and nasty.
You were right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know one of my favorite lines is, "My most abject and humble apologies, Your Majesty." Nothing could be further from the truth. It's such a great line. It was so well written. And when we started work on the musical, one day we got to work, and it had been cut from the show. And I said, "Oh, can we please put it back? It's a very important line, For me, it was important." And so they did.
I think the thing I like most about Jafar is that he is a maniac, but he's an elegant maniac. And the only reason he's able to be an elegant maniac is because he has a bird who's a complete psychotic. So that's a nice thing. It helped smooth Jafar out, having that on my shoulder. he's a high-level villain. He's intelligent, crafty. He's not like one of those stupid villains that, like, you know, they're villains just because they make mistakes. He doesn't make many mistakes until the very end. It really should be called, frankly, you know, Jafar. It's really about a wizard who is a megalomaniac and wants to take over the world. And he almost wins. Truthfully, the secret to Jafar's voice has to do with the fact that they cast Gilbert Gottfried as the parrot.
Have a cracker, pretty Polly. Pretty Polly.
Your Majesty certainly has a way with dumb animals.
Because it meant that Jafar could smooth all of his dialogue out. He could become very smooth and very mercurial, and he doesn't go too crazy until the end when he really loses it. And so I have Gilbert to thank for my performance, I guess. You're welcome, Gilbert.
Every day, really every day, was a pleasure. When I first met him, I was like, whoa, this is a lot. You know, to be in a small recording studio with Gilbert for so much time every day, I thought this is going to be, it's either going to drive me insane or it's going to be hilariously fun. And luckily it was hilariously fun. It's, you know, it's a lot of energy, and he's a fantastic guy.
Like most Disney voice artists, Jonathan has played Jafar in every one of his appearances, including the sequel Return of Jafar, Kingdom Hearts, the Aladdin television show, toys, Disney on Ice, audiobooks, and in the parks. I guess you could say even when he's not voicing him, his next role is never Jafar away. But don't say that, you'll get beat up like I did. And here's where we show exactly how much actors multitask. At the same time as working on Shining Time Station and working off the popularity of Aladdin, he was also working on the stage starring in yet another Broadway show, She Loves Me, playing the head waiter. And along with the honor of performing on Broadway, Jonathan got a Tony nod with his nomination for Best Performance by a Featured Actor. The following year, he appeared in How to Succeed in Business Without Even Trying as Bert Brad in its debut on Broadway. When that closed, he originated yet another character on Broadway, Pitkin W. Bridgework in On the Town, followed by replacing Gary Beach in The Producers playing Roger Dubree, and at the same time, the character of Bert Barry in 42nd Street, both in 2001. Bert Brad and Bert Barry both? Bombastic Broadway boy, bravo! In 2006, Jonathan started yet another Disney adventure when he performed Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast, followed by originating the role of Grimsby in the Broadway production of The Little Mermaid. In 2009, he joined the cast of Mary Poppins as Admiral Boom, which led him to originating a character he had already originated.
This is, again, a long trajectory. I was doing another show on Broadway at the time in that same theater, Mary Poppins, for a couple of years, when they started doing readings for the show. But they were doing readings for a show that was just supposed to be published so that people could, you know, produce it in schools and stuff. They had no plans to do it on Broadway at the time. And I believe that that's actually true. It's complicated because, first of all, the characters, and they had to recreate it, and there was a lot of recreation that had to be done. And I think they were waiting for the right combination of people, the right director, choreographer, the right set designer, the right, you know, for everybody to sort of all be available. That's another thing that has to happen in order to make it happen like really well for it to become successful. But, you know, while we were doing these readings, I was just doing it because they asked me. The first time Michelle Steckler said, you know, we're doing these readings of Aladdin, and Alan Menken's going to be in the room tomorrow. Would you mind coming and just reading your part? And I said, no, of course not. Why would I say no? I mean, why would I say no? Give me one good reason, you know. But Disney, when they're putting these shows together, they put a sign-up sheet up in the office. And you can sign up. Well, I'd like to play the role of Aladdin today, or Jasmine. So you sit around a big table in a boardroom. You're reading with largely people who are not even actors. And, you know, just to hear it, just to hear the text over and over and over again, you know. And then they take it away and they rewrite it and they bring it back and you do it again, you know. So that went on for a long time before it even got close to. And then one day they were like, you know what, we're thinking of maybe, this is sounding pretty good. Maybe we'll do let's do a reading, just a reading in a room, with people. And they cast it with people, with actors, And then then learning the music, and then getting up on its feet, and then doing like a presentation. And then one day they're like, we want to do a presentation of this just so we can hear it. So we go into a room. We've been rehearsing in some room in Manhattan in a big studio, and we go, all of a sudden we're being led across the hallway, and everything is different. The room is carpeted. There's, in addition to a piano, there's also percussionist, there's a sound guy, and all of a sudden they're putting microphones on us, and we're in a studio. We're just going to do a presentation, and there's like 50 chairs set up. So you're like, not in Kansas anymore.
Right.
And it went very well. It went really well. We did this great performance that day, I think because everyone was so scared.
Right.
And then a couple of weeks later, I was at a friend of mine had an opening for a book. A new book was coming out that he had written, and Tom Schumacher, who was the creative director, president of Disney Theatricals, was at this event because it was held in the theater. And he walked me down the aisle and he said, "Well, I guess it was no secret, to you that went very well the other day." And I said, "Yeah, everyone seemed to think it went well. And, we're thinking about, I'm working on a plan. I have an idea that maybe we should try this out of town somewhere on a very low level, just like on a very simple level at a regional theater or something. And I'd like to know that you'd be willing to go ahead with it before I, Well, that was the only time that I remember anyone ever asking me to participate because of my connection to the project. And I looked at him and I said, Tom, Disney's been why would I say no? Sure, I will, but let's do it soon because, my biological clock is ticking too. I did have a kind of a serious meeting with the director, Casey Nicholaw, and I said, I'm just not sure that I should be doing this. And he said, why? And I said, well, except for Alan Menken, there's not going to be anyone else in the room who was there at the time that I did it. And it's going to be all new voices. It's going to be new interpretations. I'm not sure that I can recreate Jafar. And he said, no one wants you to recreate it. They want you to do what you've been doing. And I said, I don't know how will I fit though with all, I think maybe it'd be better to get somebody new to do it, Anyway, P.S. I got out of my own way and I did it, and it's been a great experience. It was really it's been a great experience. It's I think I'm the only person to have played a Disney character that's taken it to another medium. And
which is fascinating.
Which is fascinating even to me. So like, wow, how did this happen? When we were previewing, we did a couple of out of town tryouts. The first one was in Seattle, and one night I left the stage door. Look, the genie comes out of the stage door. He looks like the genie. People are like, oh, can I have your autograph? Aladdin walks out. He looks like Aladdin. Jasmine walks out. Can I have your autograph? Not me. I walk out and I can keep walking because I just am some old guy with gray hair and glasses, And one night, a woman followed me down the alley. Excuse me, it's so dry here. Followed me down the alley and she said, excuse me, but weren't you the gentleman that played Jafar tonight? And I said, well, yes, I am. And she said, I just want to tell you something. You are wonderful and you sound just like the guy in the movie. And I said, well, thank you very much. That's a great compliment. And I kept...
You didn't even tell her, did you?
No. No, I didn't want to ruin her fun.
There is one other project I want to mention before we go that didn't really fit in anywhere else, namely his work in the beautiful documentary Life Animated. And hey, it's my show, so we'll put it right here.
I got very involved with the autism community because I was doing Mary Poppins, and I got a note backstage that a writer named Ron Suskind, who you've often seen him on television on shows. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, and he is a journalist, a wonderful journalist. He'd been at the theater with his son Owen Susskind. And Owen is on the spectrum. And one of Owen's great gifts is that he knows the name of every actor that's played every Disney character for the last 50 years.
Wow.
Well, now it's more like 55 years probably, but when I met him. And he asked me if I would consider calling Owen on his birthday. He was a huge fan of Aladdin, of the movie of Aladdin. And he loved Jafar, the character Jafar. I did, in fact, call Owen on his birthday. And we had one of the most informative conversations I think I've ever had, which really centered around, what is the story really about? And he knew exactly what it was about. I was very impressed. I knew what autism was, and I had done performances for autistic audiences, but I wasn't very well informed, I guess. So I got informed. I became friendly with their family. At the time, they were living in Washington, D.C., and I made a trip down for Owen's Halloween party which he has every year religiously, and I got to meet his friends. He has a great group of friends, some of whom I'm still in touch with. I did stay in touch with them, and I got sort of further and further into my interest, and I couldn't understand why Ron hadn't written this book, which seemed like real magic to me. It seemed like a real magic story. He had his reasons why, though. I mean, he had thought about it. I wasn't the first person to bring it up. And he was just waiting for the right time. And he did, in fact, write this book that's terrific. It's called Life Animated. I think I said that already. I'll say it again.
Yes. And
eventually, Roger Ross Williams, who is an Academy Award-winning documentary filmmaker, got interested in the book and in Ron and Owen, and they made a documentary that I participated in.
What more is there to say about the amazing Jonathan Freeman? Other than his talent, professionalism, humor, and humility, maybe his dedication. I know most people love to play their Disney roles over and over again, but playing Jafar every single night for years on Broadway, you really have to enjoy the role. Lucky for us, and perhaps unlucky for Aladdin, Jonathan does. Thank you to these people for supporting us on Patreon and Ko-fi. And if you want to make sure this channel sticks around, you can check out our Ko-fi link in the description. Every bit helps. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Click the thumbs up button below if you liked it. And if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another Discography.